Gawrylow, he is the Watchdog Network, and he is what you'd call a political advocate, activist is what the word I was looking for. And the one other thing is he's like a watchdog, a hound dog. When it comes to this, Dustin, and my politics don't always align. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy our conversation, and it certainly doesn't mean that I don't respect what he does, which everybody needs that, and he's certainly willing to provide it. Dustin, good to have you back on News and Views.
Oh, good morning, Joel.
You might have sent shockwaves through the whole state of North Dakota by what you did with this property tax measure. Describe to people what it was and what happened.
Yeah, so the Burleigh County Commission last year in April put together a Home Rule Charter Committee that would look at the county's finances and figure out what to do about some shortfalls and property taxes and that sort of thing. I was one of the people that got appointed to that committee. It also included Burleigh County Commissioner Wayne Munson and Steve Schwab and a few citizens. And what we came up with was a plan. The current half-cent sales tax that exists in Burleigh County was passed in 2014, dedicated to paying for the bonding of the regional jail that Burleigh and Morton County got together and built. And those bonds are getting paid off quicker than expected. It will be paid off by the end of this year. And our committee came to the conclusion that we should replace that half cent with a full cent and dedicate the money from that to funding law enforcement purposes at the county level and replacing or offsetting the property taxes that go to those functions. And so this 1 cent sales tax in Burleigh County that passed with 59% of the vote will now go towards offsetting law enforcement costs, which are currently paid for by property taxes. This will allow Burleigh County to cut its mill levy by at least 50%, maybe 60%, if they play their cards right and are conservative enough. And it will also shift $7 million of Burleigh County law enforcement costs away from Burleigh County property owners and to visitors, because 40% of the sales tax in Bismarck and Burleigh County get paid by visitors. So this will pay for the operations of the jail, the operations of the sheriff's department, and the operations of the state's attorney's office. And this is the bulk of what the county does. And so these are items that everybody agrees it's a role of government to do law enforcement. And it's always been my belief, my big criticism of the state when it came to property taxes over the last 20 years was this idea of buying down on a percentage basis. You can't buy down on a percentage basis on a number you don't set. But here, what we've done is we've proved that people will support line item replacements of property tax expenditures with a sales tax, as long as it's written into the measure or the law that those dollars will go to replace the entire line item of a specific government purpose that everybody agrees is a legitimate government spending purpose.
So how do you, and maybe I missed this in your explanation, but oftentimes what happens is, in my opinion, things like this pass that set a tone, and then the next thing you know, the individuals that are in charge take away the benefit that you got by passing a measure like this. How did you guarantee that's not going to happen?
Well, we wrote the measure in such a way that says that this sales tax can only be used to offset what would already be coming from property taxes for law enforcement. So the county commission, even if it gets to be, the most liberal, out of control county commission you've ever seen, which is not going to happen anytime soon.
Easy. You're a Republican in a Republican state where spending has gone crazy nuts. Can we point that out?
I didn't say Democrat. I said liberal.
Okay, go ahead.
And so they will have to abide by the will of the people, but ultimately, what we've done is
hold on a second, though. Yep. Let me challenge you. Push back on this, so I understand. So say I'm the Burleigh County Sheriff, And you've just been funded by sales tax rather than property tax. People got a property tax reduction before it, right? I mean, that's literally what you did, right? So then the Burleigh County Sheriff comes and says, "Man, did our city grow? I need 20 more officers." Okay. Does sales tax still take care of that? Or if the county commission, one of those conservative counties that doesn't know how to rein in spending, does that county commission then take it out of sales tax? Or if they approve those 20 new officers, did we put it back onto property taxes?
Well, you are correct that ultimately it will be the job of the county commission to make sure that they live within their means. And one of the big threats here is that if they try to backfill and take those dollars that were just supplanted from on the property tax side and try to rebuild that property tax revenue stream for these purposes, for law enforcement, then the next step is probably going to be, it might even be a citizen initiated measure type thing, simply coming in with another 3/4 cent sales tax, replacing the rest of the property tax at the county level, and then saying, "County, you have to live within this. You don't have that discretion."
Why didn't you do that in the beginning?
We thought that a 1 3/4 cent sales tax increase all at once would be too much. At one time, we wanted to just tackle the law enforcement side of it.
No, but why with your one? I mean, you're an ultra conservative. Why with your 1 cent sales tax didn't you take away any opportunity that the county commission has, for example, to do what we just described?
We didn't think it was passed. And we couldn't get the people at the table to agree to tying the hands of the commission that way, because we had 2 commissioners at the table. We had local folks that didn't want to get into that approach. I personally would have liked to do that, to say, this is what law enforcement gets to live on, and that's it. I didn't have the votes for that. So you got to do what you can do at the table. And ultimately, everybody knows that if the county commission does anything that disrupts the benefit that was intended by this measure, that the county commissioners are going to be in trouble, and that there's going to be alternative options that may just tie their hands completely down the road. But ultimately, I think this is a model for what needs to happen. Local government needs to fix its own problems. We can't rely on the legislature. We can't rely on politicians who talk about a good game. Ultimately, the citizens might abolish property taxes completely, if not this year, sometime down the road, if local and state officials don't get their act together. And this measure in Bismarck proves that you can come up with a solution at the local level that addresses the problem, that reduces the cost of government to local taxpayers through the property taxes, and people will support it.
So let's say, pick a county. Let's say you are Ward County, okay? And you see what happened in Burleigh County. And you're Dustin Gawrylow in Ward County. Should you right now be writing a provision that can eliminate a huge part of your property taxes using the same model you used?
I think that we've shown that it can work, and that the people will get behind it. If you do it right, if you make sure that in your proposal that those dollars can only go to certain things, and that those certain things are itemized, listed in the language, so that there is no question where those dollars have to go. And we also put in a provision that says that if property taxes are abolished statewide, this offset goes away. This 1% goes away, because if there's nothing to offset because the state is paying for everything at the local level now, then there's no reason for this sales tax to exist. So as long as you write it in a way that is tight enough to ensure the taxpayers and the voters that it will do what you want it to do, and any wiggle room that there might be, it makes it very clear that you may get away with it, but you're not going to keep your job if you do.
Dustin, are we missing a bigger picture here, which is a state sitting on billions of dollars that is forcing people to utilize property taxes? Should we be talking about an initiated measure in the state that says, for example, that the state pays, as the Constitution says, 100% of K-12 education? I mean, I'm just talking off the cuff here, but should this be a bigger, broader issue? Because what happened in Burleigh County really got the attention of many of us that are paying big-time property taxes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I think that the state definitely should be paying 100% of K-12. I'm not big on the idea of the state paying for local park districts. I think that's a local optional type of thing that you should pay with your local taxes. But yeah, I think that that's where we need to go. But in order for the state to be able to afford any of this, whether it is Rick Becker's measure to abolish property taxes or paying for K-12, the state has to stop wasting money on corporate welfare. We're wasting the earnings of the legacy fund, propping up Green New Deal programs that are supposed to be better than the federal government Green New Deal programs just because they're run by Republicans. We've got to get out of the spending mentality. And you know, if you look at the results of the election last night, I think it was a repudiation of this hyper fixation on the social issues, on the culture issues. People are worried about their pocketbooks. Nationally, we're talking about inflation, cost of living. That's what's going to bring down Joe Biden if he loses. It's not any of this social culture issue crap. And so if North Dakota conservatives want to stop losing, they need to figure out how to take on issues that average North Dakotans care about and affect them. They're not affected by all these culture issues. They might get pissed off about them, but it doesn't actually affect them personally as much as these property tax and spending issues do. And Republicans at the legislative level have to stop wasting money on corporate welfare programs, subsidizing bioscience associations, making work projects for sitting legislators. These things are obnoxious and are really corruption in my view.
Do this for me, Dustin. I've got to get to the weather here, but think of the top 5. I'm going to put 5 as the number. Examples of where the North Dakota legislature and Governor Burgum, by signing these things, have completely abused the power of the purse. Okay? I'm not talking about social policy here unless it involves money. You know, what I'm talking about is, because one thing that you focused on that I respect immensely is the fact that somebody finally did something about property taxes. Back to Dustin Gawrylow. He is the Watchdog Network. Check their work out online. Dustin, I asked you for 5 examples. 5 examples, because here's my fear about what you were able to accomplish in Burleigh County, which is that local governance doesn't adhere to what you put in front of them. So give 5 examples, you know, as you called me a liberal, of what government waste out there.
Well, I wasn't calling you a liberal, but I got 3 for you. Definitely, you know, the whole idea of the Clean Sustainable Energy Fund, taking money from the legacy fund, putting it into programs and subsidy grants designed to prop up certain companies who are friendly to the current Republican administration and Republican legislators. The prime example being the $125 million forgivable loan for a fertilizer plant using hydrogen from electrolysis, straight up corporate welfare. There's no guarantee that it will benefit North Dakota farmers in lower prices or in higher supply. I would say beyond that, you know, we need to look at the Commerce Department. If you look at 90% of the Commerce Department is designed to fund and support corporate welfare at the North Dakota level. I really think that we need to take a really hard look at what the Commerce Department really does.
Okay, where
because
to?
So yeah, I would have had more, but you know, it's been a long night, and you know, in a commercial break, it's tough. But if you give me enough time, I'm not.
I could give you more than 2. I could give you more than 2. I mean, we have had leaders in North Dakota that have professed to be these fiscal conservatives that have not been one bit.
Yeah, they're not.
There is no model like John Dorso out there. where we're
No.
going to get this session done in 65 days or whatever. And you know what? Here's the budget. Deal with it. If you can find a way to fit it in this budget, that's done. I mean, if people are out there spewing that Doug Burgum's a conservative. Let me just ask you, as a conservative, is Doug Burgum a conservative?
On certain things, he is.
What?
But
what?
Tax cuts, pension reform, but on the bulk of the issues, he has expanded the corporate welfare state in North Dakota more than anybody, including John Hoeven, which is saying a lot.
Yeah. Well, welcome to many things here in Fargo, as an example. And of course, the retirement, I would argue it's all going to pay. That one's going to blow up later on, but hey, it's going to blow up when we can't find a worker either. Dustin, always good to talk to you, man. Congratulations. I think what you did last night is really important. If I was still in the legislature, I'd be looking at my colleagues saying, do you get it? We're involved in property taxes. So thank you. Appreciate you coming on.
Sure thing.